This is the hashtag one problem with men no one talks about. What does it mean to be a man in a world that's constantly changing? Drawing from philosophy, psychology, and cultural insights, you'll discover how men can adapt, thrive, and find deeper meaning in a rapidly transforming world. By the end, you won't just understand the challenges facing men today. You'll see the opportunities they hold to redefine strength, connection, and identity for a more balanced future. In this 8-chapter guide, we will discuss how AI can and is diminishing masculinity and what should we do. So, let's just start the video. You know what to do if you find them useful. Chapter 1. Demoralization. Why are so many boys falling behind in school? It's a question that holds more weight than it appears. Beneath the surface lies a cultural shift that subtly tells boys their natural inclinations. Curiosity, competitiveness, and energy are problems to be managed, not strengths to be cultivated. Over time, this quiet suppression forms the foundation for a broader issue: the gradual demoralization of men. Imagine this: a young boy, full of boundless energy, enters a school, but it's actually a jail, not a school of thought. The boy wants to explore, challenge, and create, but he's told to sit still, be quiet, and follow the rules. Not once or twice, but day after day, year after year. Slowly, the message seeps in. His desire for action and autonomy is wrong. And here lies the first crack in the system. The modern school environment is often structured for compliance, favoring traits like agreeableness and introversion. Boys who statistically lean toward more extroverted and competitive behaviors naturally resist this setup. Research from Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 2012, found that boys often face harsher disciplinary actions in school, not necessarily because they misbehave more, but because their behavior deviates from expectations. This misalignment doesn't just discipline the child, it starts to reshape how they view themselves. But why does this matter? Because identity forms early. When boys are labeled as disruptive or difficult for simply being themselves, they start to disengage, not just from school, but from the process of learning itself. This disengagement carries into adulthood, influencing their motivation, relationships, and even societal participation. Stoicism reminds us to accept what we cannot change while focusing our energy on what we can. Yet for these boys, the lessons they learn early teach them to suppress, not channel their natural strengths. The competitive drive could be seen as a tool for growth, and the energy as a spark for creativity. Instead, these traits are often dulled before they have a chance to shine. This isn't just about education, it's about identity. A system that fails to nurture individuality creates disillusion. Perhaps the first step toward change lies in redefining the classroom as a place of exploration, not confinement, and of growth, not obedience. Chapter 2. The Crisis of Motivation. What drives a person to strive, to succeed, to keep moving forward? For men, traditionally, it has been a blend of purpose, achievement, and the sense of being needed. Yet today, a quiet crisis unfolds, a loss of motivation that ripples through every layer of their lives. To understand this, imagine a ladder. For centuries, men have climbed this ladder of societal expectations: education, career, family, with the promise of purpose at the top. But now, for many, the ladder seems broken. Automation has taken over traditional roles, shrinking the sense of contribution. The promise of stability in careers has eroded, and in relationships, shifting dynamics have left many unsure of their place. The result? A collective sense of why bother? This isn't laziness, it's disillusionment. Research from the American Psychological Association, 2020, found that men experiencing a lack of societal purpose often report feelings of apathy, depression, and detachment. When the reward structures that once motivated them, recognition, financial security, or relational stability are no longer attainable. Motivation wanes. Philosophically, this can feel like staring into the void. Stoicism teaches us that purpose is an internal construct, something we create regardless of external circumstances. Yet many men today struggle to internalize this lesson, having been conditioned to derive worth from external achievements. When these external markers vanish, they are left adrift. Technology adds another layer. Automation and AI have shifted the focus from physical to intellectual labor. While this evolution has benefits, it also alienates those who find fulfillment in hands-on, tangible work. The absence of such opportunities exacerbates feelings of redundancy and erodes the drive to improve. The solution begins with redefining purpose. Instead of looking outward, men might turn inward, asking themselves, what kind of person do I want to become? Stoicism reminds us that control lies not in external rewards, but in mastering our character. By embracing this mindset, the crisis of motivation can transform into an opportunity, a chance to rebuild identity not on fleeting societal roles, but on enduring personal virtues. This crisis is a call, not a condemnation. It invites men to climb a new ladder, one built on internal strength, resilience, and purpose that isn't tied to a crumbling system, but to the enduring strength of their character. Chapter 3. The impact of automation on masculinity. The traditional alpha pole of extreme masculinity is dead for good, or at least dying. Being alpha is not always productive and profitable. Productivity is the new norm. Have you ever wondered what happens when the roles that once defined masculinity are replaced by machines? The rise of automation is quietly reshaping society, and with it, the very idea of what it means to be a man. Although earlier manhood was associated with physical prowess, opportunity to provide for the family, and to protect them, switches towards such qualities as flexibility, problem-solving abilities, and empathy. From time immemorial, men were breadwinners, their worth defined by how well they could use their hands, survive, and defend counts. But with the increasing use of technology to replace physical human labor, and even rational activities, there is little market value placed on such attributes. In their place, a new paradigm has emerged, one that gives importance to thinking than strength, teamwork than rivalry, and flexibility than inflexibility. There needs to be a transition, and many people may feel a certain type of security or stability slipping away after this occurs. Pew Research 2020 have also showed that the men in the traditional larger masculine jobs like manufacturing and construction are the biggest sufferers of automation. Due to a lack of opportunities, as well as platforms to perform their preeminent craftsmanship in artistic industries, there are those who fail to locate their place in this world. The psychological stress is high. This leaves many men with no direction or purpose. Thus, they need to have defined roles. Stoicism offers a lens to navigate this change. The fact is, it shows us one thing that remains constant in this world is change. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is within the power of a man to be happy, and he has the power over himself alone." You will square this with strength. It's not about not going with the flow, but rather about learning how to ride the waves. Surprisingly, this shift may not be so bad. It forces men to be something that has never been associated with traditional masculinity, sensitive and knowledgeable. The structures of the world may be shedding their reliance on the power of muscles, but not of dynamics. The key lies in adaptation. Consequently, masculinity is not fixed, but dynamic, and it can do one thing: evolve. It is men who will embrace the change, who will learn to marry the old-fashioned values with new-age employability skills, who will not just live, but prosper in the new world. The message is clear. The old tools may no longer fit, but the ability to wield new ones is a power all its own. Chapter 4. Line of higher education participation. Never memorize something that you can look up. Sir Albert Einstein. What has happened to the males enrolling in universities and college? And why does this matter? The phenomenon is not simply a question of statistics. It is a sign of changes in the culture that is remaking achievement and masculinity. Traditionally, people define higher education as the key to success, especially during the past several decades. All in all, more specifically, men, especially, were to embrace it in order to obtain secure professions and provide for their families in a manner usual for males of that epoch. But the last few decades have been rather severe in terms of male enrollment. As per analysis made by National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, today male students account to less 40% of the total college students, and this trend is on the rise. But why? For many, it is all about getting things done and getting them done well. High costs of fees, as well as the notion that college degrees are not as valuable as they used to be, make college unattractive. Moreover, the appearance of the entrepreneurial culture and new learning environments, such as online courses or certifications, presents men with new opportunities to gain knowledge without enrolling in a class. Yet, there's something deeper at play. Disengagement. From an early age, boys are often less academically inclined in traditional school settings. This trend follows them into their teenage years, creating a pipeline where fewer young men feel connected to academic success. Moreover, as society shifts toward valuing traditionally feminine traits like collaboration and empathy, some men feel out of place in academic environments that prioritize these skills over competitive or hands-on learning. This decline has ripple effects. Lower education rates among men often correlate with reduced earning potential, fewer leadership roles, and lower participation in broader societal structures. It also exacerbates feelings of inadequacy, as men who deviate from the traditional path of higher education often struggle with societal perceptions of failure. Stoicism teaches us that external achievements, like degrees or titles, are not the essence of self-worth. The challenge, then, is to find value beyond the classroom. Education, in its purest form, is not confined to institutions. It is the pursuit of knowledge, the sharpening of the mind, and the cultivation of wisdom. Perhaps the future of male participation in education lies in redefining its purpose. Billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and many others don't want to send their children to traditional education system and teach to think, not to just memorize like AI. Rather than forcing men into outdated molds, society could benefit from creating systems that value diverse learning styles. Adaptation and curiosity, after all, are traits that transcend the classroom. If men can embrace these, they can navigate this shift with resilience and grace. Chapter 5. The Withdrawal from Relationships. Why are so many men stepping away from relationships, intimacy, and even the pursuit of connection altogether? This growing trend is more than just a lifestyle choice. It's a reflection of deeper cultural and psychological shifts that are reshaping how men relate to others and themselves. In recent years, studies like those from the Kinsey Institute, 2019, have revealed an increase in young men reporting less interest in romantic relationships and even sexual activity. Surprisingly, some are not just avoiding relationships, but withdrawing from the entire social dynamic. This phenomenon, sometimes labeled voluntary celibacy or hikikomori in extreme cases, reflects a retreat from what once defined adulthood for many men. One factor is a changing cultural landscape. As gender roles become more fluid and expectations more ambiguous, many men feel unequipped to navigate modern relationships. Traditional models of masculinity, where men were providers and protectors, no longer fit. At the same time, some struggle to adapt to a world that values emotional intelligence and vulnerability, traits not always nurtured during their upbringing. Technology adds another layer to this disconnection. The rise of online spaces, social media, and even adult content provides a simulation of connection without the vulnerability of real relationships. Over time, these digital escapes can erode the desire or confidence to engage meaningfully with others. Philosophically, this withdrawal highlights a paradox. Stoicism teaches the importance of relationships in building virtue and resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. In isolation, the self stagnates. In connection, it grows." Yet, many men today withdraw because relationships seem fraught with expectations they feel unable to meet. Here lies an opportunity for growth, to redefine connection as a space of mutual understanding rather than performance. It's not about fitting into a mold, but finding balance, learning to communicate, embrace vulnerability, and seek shared purpose. The road back to connection requires courage. It calls for men to step into discomfort, challenge themselves to grow, and see relationships not as a test of masculinity, but as a path to becoming more human. Only then can the withdrawal transform into a return, not just to others, but to themselves. Chapter 6: The Rise of the Sigma Male Archetype. What happens when traditional roles of dominance no longer hold sway? Enter the Sigma male, a relatively new term describing the change of how masculinity is defined and enacted in the recent years. He also clearly differs from the alpha male, who is comfortable in a rigid organizational structure and enjoys power and control. On the contrary, the Sigma male is individualistic, generally autonomous, and reflective. This archetype is not new. It is simply a new package of characteristics that have been valued in philosophical and literary works. A hero from unstipulated Hollywood movie, or the thinking man above the herd, or the man who chooses loneliness. But why is this archetype so appealing right now? First of all, the contemporary society has not encouraged physical superiority and assertiveness on the battlefield. Introduction of IT systems, computerization, and international commerce and business operations demand valuable human assets such as intelligence and emotional strength, than muscle power and brawn. The Sigma archetype represents these characteristics, watching, assessing, and making decisions without reporting to the conventional organizational authority. Psychologically, the rise of the Sigma male also reflects a broader cultural shift as rigid gender roles dissolve. Men are searching for identities that align with personal values rather than societal expectations. The Sigma male archetype offers an appealing alternative. It allows men to detach from the often conflicting demands of being alpha, while still embracing strength, competence, and autonomy. But the Sigma archetype isn't without its pitfalls. Overemphasis on independence can lead to isolation, and rejection of hierarchy can become a rejection of community. Here, Stoicism provides balance. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, man is by nature a social animal, and even the lone wolf must eventually return to the pack. True strength lies not just in walking alone, but in knowing when to engage. This shift also points to a deeper truth. Modern masculinity must evolve to fit a world that increasingly values balance. The Sigma male archetype is a reflection of this evolution, blending self-mastery with adaptability. However, the challenge is to ensure that independence doesn't become a fortress, but a foundation for meaningful connection. In this new era, the Sigma male archetype serves as both a symbol and a question. How can men thrive without clinging to outdated norms? The answer lies not in rejecting masculinity, but in redefining it to align with the demands of a changing world. Chapter 7: The Psychological Toll of Cultural Expectations. How does a man find balance in a world that is increasingly shifting, as the modern world tilts toward valuing traits traditionally associated with femininity? empathy, collaboration, and emotional expression. Many men find themselves caught between what their DNA says and what is now expected. This tension creates an invisible burden, a psychological toll that often manifests as confusion, isolation, or even withdrawal. Cultural expectations for men today can feel contradictory. They are encouraged to be emotionally vulnerable, but criticized when they display traits that deviate from traditional masculinity. They're asked to succeed in environments that prioritize subtlety and tact while suppressing traits like competitiveness or assertiveness. The result is often a sense of not knowing where they fit, a fragmented identity caught between the past and the present. This cultural shift can be traced to what some call the feminization of societal values. As automation and intellectual labor take precedence, qualities like nurturing, flexibility, and emotional intelligence are more in demand. While this evolution isn't inherently negative, the rapid pace of change has left many men struggling to adapt. From a psychological perspective, these shifting expectations can lead to increased rates of anxiety and depression. A study published in Psychological Bulletin 2018 found that men who felt unable to meet traditional or masculine ideals were more likely to report feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem. These struggles often go unnoticed, as cultural norms still discourage men from expressing vulnerability. But the answer isn't to swing the pendulum back to rigid masculinity. Instead, it's to find balance. Stoicism teaches us that strength lies in adaptability. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Men must learn to embrace the strengths of both traditional and modern values, blending resilience with empathy, independence with connection. The world isn't becoming feminine. It's evolving toward balance. Men must evolve with it, learning to grow beyond outdated archetypes while remaining grounded in their unique strengths. This adaptation isn't a loss. It's an opportunity to redefine masculinity as a dynamic and balanced force. Balance, after all, isn't about choosing sides. It's about harmonizing opposites, creating something stronger in the process. Chapter 8. A Path to Reconnection. What does it mean to reclaim purpose in a world that feels increasingly unmoored? For men today, the answer lies not in resisting change, but in adapting, learning, and growing. It's about finding balance, a harmony between the traditional and the modern, the individual and the collective, the masculine and the feminine. The journey begins with understanding. Society's evolution toward valuing emotional intelligence, collaboration, and adaptability isn't a threat to masculinity, but an invitation to expand its definition. Men are not being asked to abandon their strengths, but to complement them with new ones. This growth isn't a betrayal of tradition, but an embrace of evolution. The Stoic philosophy offers a framework for this adaptation. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Change, though unsettling, is not the enemy. Resistance to change is. By focusing on what can be controlled, character, values, and actions, men can navigate uncertainty with resilience. Education is one area where this reconnection can thrive. Instead of seeing it as an institution to be avoided, men can redefine learning as a lifelong pursuit, whether through formal education, skill acquisition, or personal development. The goal is growth. This doesn't mean conforming to outdated models, but exploring ways that align with one's individuality. Relationships, too, are critical. The withdrawal from intimacy and connection isn't a sustainable solution. It's a temporary retreat. Rebuilding relationships requires vulnerability, a willingness to show up, to listen, to care, even when it's uncomfortable. True strength lies not in isolation, but in shared purpose and understanding. Finally, balance is the key. The world may be leaning toward traits traditionally seen as feminine, but this doesn't diminish masculinity. It challenges it to evolve. Men who integrate empathy with resilience, collaboration with independence, and humility with confidence will find themselves not just surviving this new era, but thriving within it. Reconnection isn't about returning to what was. It's about embracing what is and shaping what can be. The path forward is one of integration, not opposition. By adapting to the needs of the present while honoring the values of the past, men can build a future that is not only balanced, but deeply fulfilling. The journey isn't easy, but as the Stoics teach, the hard path is often the most meaningful. It's time to climb the ladder again, not the one society once offered, but one built on self-awareness, growth, and enduring strength. Thanks for watching. Now, please share your opinion. I will read each comments and pin the most inspiring one. Peace.